James, is there a traffic jam with that signal up there? 3, 2, 1. Hello, we're live now. So good morning and welcome to ATU Donegal for this very important date when hopefully we'll tease out issues that will be of benefit to future generations in this region and on this island. My name is Tommy Gorman. I was saying that it's 42 years ago that I drove in the road to begin a career working with RTE. I was the Northwestern correspondent for 9 years. In a book that I've just published, I tell how Donegal became a very special place for me, and it will always be that special place. I'm very conscious too that the late John Hume, a great friend, was one of the first people I heard talking about bring jobs to people, bring education to people, and that's how you start to make decisive peace and a decisive breakthrough. John was the person who invented FDI in a way. John was the person who went to the United States looking for investment for his native city. So I know that people like John and people from that tradition would be so proud of what we're going to do today. So this day is not about me, it's about you. And I'd say we'll be judged by whether the discussions today lead to concrete developments that will help future generations of students. I'm delighted that the introduction to proceedings today will be given by the person who has been given the really challenging job of leading the whole ATU adventure. When you think of Orla Flynn's background, born in the United States, brought up in Waterford, camogie player, great athlete, went to work in Cork, worked in all areas of education in Cork, in the Crawford, worked in the Institute, and then came west, came to Galway, was running the Galway and Castlebar collaboration, and then, on merit, got chosen in this day when it's still hard for women to get top jobs, got chosen to lead this ATU adventure. An adventure that involves Galway and Castlebar and Sligo and Letterkenny. And what's so special about this place here is this is to the forefront of the shared island, the porous border between Derry and Donegal, that relationship that has been there for not just generations, but for centuries. And I know the energy she has for her new role. As someone from the Northwest, I'm excited by it as a citizen of the Northwest. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce the President of ATU, Dr. Orla Flynn. Thank you.
Dar mil mágat Tomás agus mar dúir Tomás is mis Orla ní lein Uachtarán an Seán in Ollscoil Technoléacht an Atlantic agus is mór na Northern fáilte críúla choróibh go léir ar maidin go dtí an cógáil speisialta seo. I want to give a warm welcome to everyone here. A very special welcome to our partners in the Tertiary Education Cluster, our partners in Ulster University, the Northwest Regional College and Donegal ETB. And I do want to welcome as well a whole range of other supporters here today, including Donegal County Council, Derry City and Strabane District Council, and many of our industry stakeholders in the region. And of course, we have our guest speakers today. We'll shortly be hearing from Minister Simon Harris and David McWilliams. And I know that Minister Harris is disappointed to be only joining us online, but I have my claws into him, and one of these days I'll get him here to Donegal to join us. As Tommy mentioned earlier, Atlantic Technological University was formed on the 1st of April. We cover a region that's about the size of Wales. I'm delighted to see colleagues here, not just from Donegal, but from Sligo and from Galway and from Mayo, colleagues here from right across the university. We are 8 campuses. We hope to be 9 shortly when St. Angela's integrates with us. And our big challenge, our big task is to form one university that serves our unique region. And that's a mantra I know that many of our colleagues have heard me say. And in relation to the Northwest Tertiary Education Cluster, our challenge will be to bring a whole of university approach the full weight of ATU in support of this cross-border engagement and initiative. And just speaking a little bit about the Northwest Tertiary Education Cluster, was established in 2018, and I do want to acknowledge the role played by the Northwest Strategic Growth Partnership, which was established in 2015, and the subsequent funding allocated by the HEA, Higher Education Authority, in 2019 and 2020. And throughout today, you will hear from many speakers who will articulate the challenges that faced by the region, both from an educational perspective and from an industry perspective. And I hope that coming together, we will also hear and see a solutions approach and a solutions mindset. And finally, before I conclude, I do want to pay tribute to Paul Hannigan, Director, former President and Director and President here in Letterkenny Institute of Technology as it was, Head of College here in ATU Donegal, and all the team here in Letterkenny who have driven this engagement, who've driven this partnership. Gur Míle Míle Mágat. I do want to wish you Tásulgam Gominnig Shiv Tanna Vasan Law on Seo Inniuv, August Gur Míle Míle Mágat. Slán.
Thank you, Orla. There's a real professional. We were trying to squeeze a few minutes to catch up so that we could hit our date with the Minister, Simon Harris. And Orla, thank you for doing that, for squeezing time. It's a real honour to introduce our next guest, our main guest indeed, the Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, Simon Harris TD. Minister, I know that somewhere up there you're hearing me. And it's lovely to have you. We had dealings in your past life when you were a Minister for Health, and many's the time I met you on cross-border activities, and I know the passion you've brought to what is really a new brief, recognising that there are new needs in the education sector and the need to widen our understanding of further education. I also know that somehow you've managed to get deep pockets to bring to that portfolio, so well done on that. We're sorry that you're not here among us. I was talking to Simon Coveney on Wednesday morning, and he told me he was on his way to Donegal for meetings, so there was one government minister here earlier in the week. But it's lovely in this age of modern communications to have you online. And this audience, and indeed our online audience, because this facility is being streamed, they're all very anxious to hear what you have to say. So welcome, Simon Harris, Minister.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for the kind introduction, Tommy. And I must say at the outset, good luck with the book. We're all delighted to see it. You truly have been a national treasure, and you've really helped inform citizens right across this island of all of the latest news on the island of Ireland, and most particularly how it relates to cross-border issues. So I want to just take this opportunity today at an event in the Northwest, and as you say, you being a citizen of the Northwest, to genuinely thank you for your incredible and ongoing achievement and work in terms of embedding cross-border relations and cross-border work. So Gur Míle Mágat for all that you do. I really am pleased to be here with you today. I'm sorry that I'm only here with you virtually, but there wasn't a hope in hell I was going to miss this event. One, because I passionately believe in it, and secondly, because you wouldn't be brave enough to not turn up at something Orla Flynn invites you to. I want to echo Tommy's words of Cahordagus. Congratulations to President Orla Flynn, to all of the team for all the work that's being done. I want to thank Paul as Head of College here in Donegal for the work that he has done in getting us to this point. And I'm so excited about the progress that the Atlantic Technological University is making. And I must say, when I was with you on Designation Day, on the first day of the opening of this new technological university, you could really feel the sense of regional pride and excitement in what this new university, this new vehicle, could do for the region, could do for inclusion, could do for access, could do for economic growth, for investment, and crucially, could do for cross-border engagement and for plugging in, if you like, to cross-border activity and building on all the good work that has been done to date. It's interesting that Tommy referenced John Hume, because in my own preparation for this event, I too was thinking of him And I too was thinking of the marches, and I too was thinking of his advocacy for the city of Derry. And I too was thinking of so much of what he worked so hard and dedicated his life for that has now been fulfilled and that we continue to work on and build on and grow and embed. But I was also thinking of the outstanding work that we must do in his name. And that is about making sure that there are equal educational opportunities for all people in the Northwest and indeed for the city of Derry. And it is in his name that I know many of us want to be here today to continue to build on the incredible legacy of John Hume and his commitment to education and to equality of access to education. I'm really aware of the excellent work that's going on in Donegal, in Derry, in the Northwest, and on a cross-border basis. And I think we can see that today with the organisers who've come forward with this event. So I want to thank ATU, as I have already, and President Orla Flynn. I also want to thank Ulster University. And I'm particularly pleased to see this being an event around a unified tertiary education system. As Tommy perhaps suggested, I'm a little obsessed with this. I don't want just conversations about third level education to just be about the higher education component. It has to be about all of the pathways that exist in further and higher education. And I'm particularly delighted to see and grateful to Donegal ETB for their work on this event, and also to the Northwest Regional College. I think it speaks to the region, and it speaks to the work you've done to date, that the two local authorities are here, and I really want to thank them for all that they do. Derry, Strabane and Donegal. I know from my conversations with the Taoiseach, I know from my past ministerial roles, the two local authorities have been so dedicated and committed to this work because it simply makes sense. So thank you to the local authorities. Thank you to the further education colleges, the ETB and the Regional College, and thank you to ATU and Ulster University. Look, I come to this issue today from a very practical sense. If we park conversations about politics and emblems and constitutional questions, if we just look at this from a practical point of view, we need to do more together in relation to education because it makes sense. We've done it in health. I think of Altnagelvin. I think of cancer patients from Donegal going to Altnagelvin to get access to their cancer treatment. I think of very sick babies from Northern Ireland going to get life-saving heart surgery in Crumlin Children's Hospital. I think of the incredible network that's now been developed around cardiac care in children over the years, and all of that work that's been done. So we know that when it came to health, it made sense to work together on certain issues. Similarly, when it comes to education, it just makes sense to do things together. This is a small island, and we need to pull together in the interests of all our people. And I'm conscious that we're not starting from scratch. I'm conscious that this conversation today about next steps perhaps builds on strong foundations of many who have worked so hard on this for so many years. But there is much, much more we can do. I had the honour of giving a guest lecture in Queen's University in recent months, and I took the opportunity to outline some of the areas where I thought we could engage on a cross-border basis when it comes to education. And I outlined 4 areas. Firstly, the development of cross-border apprenticeships. We know we have real challenges when it comes to climate, and we have real challenges when it comes to housing on the island of Ireland. And we know that to rectify those issues, we will need more people working in trades and more people doing apprenticeships. And again, it simply makes sense to do that on a cross-border basis. Already tradespeople go through that porous border on a daily basis. We should educate them in the same way. And we will develop cross-border apprenticeship programs starting in construction in 2023. So that's the first area. The second area is when it comes to medical education. It makes sense, again, to work on an all-island basis when it comes to medical education and medical places. And my own department and the Department of Health here in Ireland have been having conversations with our counterparts in the Department of the Economy in Northern Ireland, the Department of Health in Northern Ireland, the 2 chief medical officers on the island of Ireland, and indeed with Ulster University and Queen's University. And again, it is within our grasp in the next year to deliver an all-island approach to medical education, and we must seize that. The third area is the whole issue of all-island research centres. When I was our country's Minister for Health, and I worked very closely with the Northern Ireland Minister for Health, Robin Swan, in relation to COVID. But I think everybody will be able to acknowledge that we need to work even closer together in the future on pandemic preparedness. What an incredible legacy it would be for the people of the island of Ireland from the COVID pandemic if we were to have an all-island research centre on infectious diseases. So in the future, we're trying to get ahead of rather than catch up with a new infectious disease that could grip our country and grip our world. So all island research centres, and again, we can have the debate, and we don't even need to have the debate about what they're called or how we badge them. That doesn't bother me. What we need to do, though, is bring our best and our brightest researchers together to work on some of the big global challenges we face. And the fourth, and the real reason I'm here today, is to talk about how we can now take what is a technological university in the Northwest, the ATU, the Atlantic Technological University, and how we can use its reach, its potential, its energy, its passion to plug in to doing more on a cross-border basis. ATU Donegal is located in a very, very unique region of Ireland. Clearly, it is the most northwesterly part of our country. And I know it's also a place that people have often complained of neglect from officialdom in the past. It's an area that is geographically isolated from major population centres. And it's also true to say that many Donegal people left their region for economic and other reasons. If trends were to be reversed back then, people felt they had to reach within their own resources to make things happen, and that they didn't feel they could rely on official Ireland to deliver that progress. And during that time, I'm sure many people in Donegal looked across the border, and truthfully and objectively, things were not much better there. While there was, and is thankfully, the backdrop of the Good Friday Agreement and the benefits of peace, the need to deliver economically and socially for the region was and is clear. In those moments, visionary leadership from the two local authorities, Donegal County Council and Derry Strabane District Council, came together to look at the needs of the region, and not just to identify the problem, not just to give out, not just to complain, but actually to say, what can we do? And their efforts were not political, certainly not with a capital P or in a party political sense. It was clear they recognised that there were common issues, there were interdependencies, which could be better achieved through collaboration and through shared responses. And in that moment, education institutions were brought very quickly into that space, and I'm so proud of the role that they have played. While there was a history of collaboration between what was then Letterkenny IT and the University of Ulster, Magee, along with Donegal ETB and the Northwest Regional College, this movement brought a fresh impetus to those education relationships. And what has emerged has been truly quite magical. It's been the Northwest Strategic Growth Partnership, a can-do partnership, a unique entity on this island, and an entity which has rightly secured support from both our Department of the Taoiseach and from the Executive Office in Northern Ireland. Specifically, it was encouraged to prepare proposals on the basis of a cross-border region. And that's a legacy that we continue to build on today, and really a legacy that we gather to discuss today and say, what more can we do? It's clear that significant progress has been made in recent years, and I want to thank everybody involved in that. But it's also clear we have a long but very exciting road ahead of us. Since becoming Minister, my department and I have placed an unrelenting focus on creating better links and better ties with colleagues in the North. Recently, as I said, when I visited Queen's University, I took that opportunity to outline some of the progress we've made. And soon we will have students from the Republic of Ireland applying through the CAO for training in Ulster University or in Queen's in the area of medicine. Through the Shared Island Fund, the Irish government has delivered a major new €40 million North-South research programme, and this is now underway. And again, we didn't allow politics or political vacuums get in the way of this. We know that we have really good interpersonal relationships in the education and research space, and we wanted to put funding behind that to further embed and progress those relationships. I have to say, quite honestly, not only did the volume of applications well surpass our expectations, the quality was outstanding, so much so that we decided to actually spend the full 40 million on the first round of calls, whereas it was originally our intention to divide it amongst a number. We've now seen such a demand, I'm announcing and confirming today, that we launch a further call in the new year for more cross-border research projects. I know today you're focusing on Smart Northwest Network, and you're illustrating the policy collaboration taking place in the Northwest City region in terms of education and employment. And there are just two areas that I'd like to focus on. That's the area of skills and tertiary education. Turning first to skills, this is very much at the heart of my department's work, a key part of the public good of further and higher education is its capacity to enable everyone, regardless of their background, their age, their gender, their postal address, to achieve their full potential, whether it's through education or into the workforce. It's absolutely critical that companies and people acquire the technical skills and the transversal skills such as leadership, creativity, teamworking, problem solving, and emotional intelligence, and that our talent pipeline meets those dual needs. We're very fortunate that Ireland has an advanced system of skills provision across further and higher education institutions, lifelong learning, and human capital development. Our system is generally agile and responsive to changes in the world of work. But notwithstanding this, we live in a world and a country and an economy where we have significant skills shortages. And this can become and does become more acute when you take this issue into a region, let alone a cross-border region. Inevitably, there are structural issues, and of course, we always can and must improve. However, the imperative in Ireland is to ensure agility and responsiveness in the skills ecosystem, to respond to shortages as they emerge and to meet the future skills needs of our economy and our society. And I'm pleased to confirm that we are going to develop those cross-border apprenticeships, and we're going to ensure that no apprentice is bound by any border in accessing education or training. We cannot allow any structural issue or bureaucratic issue stand in the way of making sure people can access the skills that they need and the skills that we need them to have in the Northwest region. And this collaboration is at the heart of our skills infrastructure. And I know Hilary McPartland has been at the centre of bringing people together here in the Northwest to identify, interrogate and validate skills needs, and to ensure that employers and enterprise are linked to the right places to get the responses they need. The regional skills managers and their advice is vital in harnessing the potential of small, medium and micro enterprises and how to unlock upskilling and embed lifelong learning in those workplaces. Crucially and thankfully, you're working together to address the needs of the Northwest. The work of ATU Donegal and Donegal ETB is genuinely an exemplar to other regions, and the close alliance with UU Magee and the Northwest Regional College and the leadership in each of these institutions must be acknowledged and celebrated. Truthfully, you've stolen a march on everyone. And I want to say today that the Irish government remains absolutely committed to fulfilling our commitments under New Decade, New Approach to help grow and expand student numbers, facilities and services at the Magee campus of UU. And it was my great honour to visit there not too long ago. But this collaboration and this work across higher education institutions and across further education institutions, it is a testament. It's a testament to your ambition and the ambition of all of the agencies in this region to focus on the needs of your people, people who are looking to stay here, people who want to raise a family here, and people who have a desire to contribute to the Northwest economic and social fabric. It is taken as read that employers and wider industry through the regional skills structures are also involved in this process. They must be centrally involved. And I fully support this work and I commend all involved. This can only lead to positive outcomes for all, but critically to positive, hopeful futures for the people of the Northwest region. So today, my challenge to you and to myself and to my department and to my agencies is how do we take the next steps together? How do we make sure we accelerate that historic tradition of working together in the Northwest in the interests of all our people? What are the landmark projects? What are the milestones that we want to look back on in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years and say we got there together? How do we develop those apprenticeship programs and make sure they're up and running for learners next year? How do we make sure we get this medical places issue sorted once and for all, so next year sees an all-island approach to medical education? How and when and how quickly can we and the British government deliver on our commitments in New Decade, New Approach to expand the Magee campus? How can we deliver those all-island research centres and make sure that the Northwest is ready to lead and perhaps to have first mover advantage? These are collective challenges. They're challenges that I am 100% determined to, and I know every member of the Irish government from the Taoiseach down wants to see progress on these issues, wants to work in a helpful, collegiate way on issues of common concern to people of the Northwest, regardless of what side of that porous border they live on. And I'm particularly pleased today that I know you're going to be formally launching the new branding and guidelines around the Northwest Tertiary Education Cluster. And I know Dr. Flynn has shared that with me, and I must say the design rationale is quite compelling. A new ring in the branding symbolising the interconnectivity of information within that partnership. And I know the rings are inspired by structural landmarks and natural geometrical shapes in the Northwest region. The colour blue being chosen for the new branding, because blue has been chosen for its energising qualities, including imagination, inspiration and vibrancy. And blue has positive associations with nature and with landscapes unique to the Northwest. And when it comes to typography, a bold, uncomplicated, and God knows uncomplicated is a good thing at the moment, uncomplicated typeface chosen to show clarity, confidence, boldness and commitment. Because I do think we meet today, virtually or in person, with that real sense of clarity, with that real sense of confidence, that we are stronger in working together, that we are proud of what we have achieved so far. But we must do more. We will do more. We will advance the work of John Hume. We will fulfill his vision, and we will serve all of the people of the Northwest, regardless of where they live, what their tradition, what their gender, or what their mother or father did before them. I wish you a very successful conference, and thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you very much, Gur Míle Mágaibh.
Minister, if you're still hearing us, it was very uplifting to hear that energy and that commitment and the recognition that this really is a special place. For a long time, Donegal felt isolated, so far from Dublin. For me, it was fascinating the way it forged that link with its next door neighbour in Derry, and we're seeing the fruits of that come to pass. I lived on the Strand Road in Derry in the early 80s, and there were tough times. Near Andy Cole's pub, down the road from Radio Foyle, and down the road from what was a very quiet McGee in those years. And in those troubled times when people were being killed on a far too regular basis, when we had the obscenity of violence as an everyday reality, I often thought of, could things have been different if there had been an educational outlet for some of the young people who invariably are the foot soldiers in such conflict? And it's wonderful to see now the new opportunities that are there and the effect that's having, almost from the grassroots up, from the working class streets up, and long may it continue. You mentioned the new branding that has been established. So I'd like to welcome onto the stage again Dr. Orla Flynn, so that we can get a photograph of Orla with this new branding. And I think we've got a photographer here in place. Clive, maybe I'll come up and get this so that we can actually have this official photograph of the launch of the branding. Thank you, Orla. This is you, yeah. Well, Clive, will you? Lovely, just here. Thank you, Orla, for fulfilling that function. Branding is a bit of an obsession these days. I was amused to see the activity that was going on over NUIG, and its new name. It's almost going back to the future or back to the past. But branding in the age we live in it's pretty important. It's now my pleasure to welcome onto the stage the Chief Executive of Derry City and Strabane District Council, John Kelpie, and the Chief Executive of Donegal County Council, John McLaughlin. They don't need any Q&A activity with me. They're two gunslingers who are well used to making their own way, minding their own patch, minding their own backs, and also leading from the front. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I doubt you spent a bit too long on the Strand Road that time. Anyway, good morning, everyone. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here and invited, and a great positive vibe from the room this morning, and a great location. And thanks to ATU, our newest university in the region, to Dr. Orla and Paul Hannigan and all your team for making the arrangements. First of all, just thank our minister, and it's unfortunate, but I explain why he couldn't be here. But it's always very good for us here to have a minister in the region, and it shows our connection to central government and the importance of it, and for them to have recognition for what they do. And there's no doubt Minister Harris has that in spades. He understands our work, he appreciates, and he also sees the relevance of it. And he's been particularly vocal about, that broader education agenda from all levels. And it struck me, and I worked in America a while, and tell a short story about education. I was not too dissimilar a function one time, and the speaker said, look, everyone and every parent wants people to work now on computers and all the technology and high achievers. And he said, look at that coffee table over there, and it was a very fancy one, handcrafted. He says, everyone probably in this room could be trained to work on a computer. He said, not everyone could make that table. And we need to alter our value system sometimes as well, in terms of what we value careers and how we've progressed and how they're recognised both in society and by parents and all the rest of it. I think Minister Harris has began to open up that conversation. And it's particularly important for the Northwest region that, given our background, what people did over the years and so on, and what they enjoyed doing, and that's important too. It's not just about money. You have to have life satisfaction and so on. So I think it's important for that to be recognised, and there's room for both. Certainly we want to be in the innovation space and technology and research, but we need to have space for everyone as well. And I think the subtitle today, A Region of Opportunities, I think a very fitting title. First of all, the word region. And we recognise that we are a region. We're very pleased with the Ireland 2040. When it came out, we were recognised as a Northwest City region. And then the opportunities, very important here, and we have many, many opportunities. And I was struck, some of the earlier conversations as well, talked about cross-border region. I would say for John Kelpin was that we somewhat have dropped the cross-border part. We refer to ourselves as a region now, and the border part is less relevant over the years. So we work very well as a region, and you can't but also recognise that we've been categorised as a lagging region recently, and that's important to recognise. That's where we're at, and we're at the lower end of a lot of the economic indicators for the wrong reasons, whether it's poverty, disposable income, the brain drain, and so on. And that's, if that's factual, that's where we're at, and we need to see what can we do to lift ourselves out of it. And it'll be quite a big lift. But we do believe we have the right structures. The two councils working as the region. We have what I'd say is the outer framework together, which hopefully everyone can collaborate and work within that, connected to central government, both governments. We have the growth partnership that the Minister referred to, and that was signed by both governments and well supported. We have a unique opportunity, I would say, in the Northwest to have that direct access to two governments and all their departments. And then it's our, I suppose, responsibility and duty to make the most of that and to get the most out of it. And that depends on everyone in this room as well, to work, and everyone does their piece, and together we lift that heavy load together. We work under those three main pillars, the economic growth and the job creation and so on, then the physical development of the region, whether that's in the buildings or the infrastructure. And we all know the story about the transport access and broadband to the Northwest. Very, very important, and we must keep that going. And then on the social and well-being and the health, and I suppose the quality of life and the well-being of our citizens, very important. So those are the three broad headings, and everything else kind of can fit in under that, whether it's the education, the health, and so on. There's room for it all. So I think I'd say that, and I suppose we've had quite a number of successes to date. It's not all about what's not right. Huge success in the region, somewhat outlined by Minister Harris as well, in terms of our joint FDI promotion. When we go to the United States, for example, no one would know. We're from two different parts, one area. A long time ago, we recognised very, very well that a job in Derry versus a job in Letterkenny, not much different. People will travel to it, and we don't compete for those. We collaborate instead. Same is true even in arts and the creative sector as well. The other end of the spectrum, perhaps, we share that as well, and people will travel to that. And with sports and tourism, we can do all that together and jointly promote the area. So, and I won't have spent too long, but I think I could just say, that we believe that there's a proper framework and background. We need what's the right word, more strategic and targeted investment, and we're there to help shape that and work with everyone, and particularly with our central government, where most of the money will come from, and I suppose to create the Northwest to be a net contributor to the entire economy of the island. And we see that as our responsibility, and we're very pleased. And it's a great time, actually, in terms of, particularly, I would say, for the Dublin government, a lot of investment there in the last couple of years. Lots of money, tens and tens of millions, have been invested all over this region, and it's what we can create as an outcome for the future generations. That'll be our challenge, and to give people a future here that they can stay and, I suppose, be part of the future economy. For years, we've seen many of our young people leave for education and then stay away. And that's not unusual. All over the world that happens in certain regions. But we're looking to reverse that trend, keep people here, and then they can set up the companies and so on. And people who know this area understand the quality of life. And those things follow and improve as you get more and more people and grow the population. I suppose the population will have about, we'd say, 350 to 400,000 people in the wider region within a short reach. And we'd see that as a counterbalance to the Dublin development as well, or the Cork Limerick, and even the Belfast Dublin line. And of course, we're straddling EU and non-EU because of Brexit, and that should offer opportunities to the region. And then we just try to maximise those. And I might just, Chair, just to pass over to John Kelpie. Thanks.
Thanks very much, John, and good morning, everywhere. Thanks to Orla and colleagues in the cluster for inviting us here this morning. So, sort of building on what John has said, a smart Northwest, and reflecting on what that is and what we're here to talk about this morning. So delighted to see so many business colleagues in the room today. And business, as we know, is always thinking smarter, doing smarter, acting smarter, to be more competitive in the environment within which they work. And regions, and city regions in particular, are in the same space. Recently, city regions have had to think smarter. We're all competing for investment. We're all competing for jobs. We're all competing for growth. So just as businesses, regions have to think that way. And successful regions over the last number of years have collaborated to do just that. So the question is, what is a smart city region? And look, clearly it's about creativity, it's about innovation, it's about driving digital solutions, it's about putting in place processes and systems to do things better for citizens, for businesses, for stakeholders across the region. We do that in abundance in this city region. We're improving all of the time. We're doing it right across all of the partners. But for me, the standout is that we do way more than that to be labelled a smart region. And there are two things that we add on top of that. First of all, you've got to know your product. You've got to know and promote and exploit your product of the region. And secondly, we've all got to work together to support each other to do that. And that's what we do here in the Northwest. That's what makes us, in my view, the smartest city region on this island. We know our product. And what is our product? Our product is primarily our people, our talent, the young, creative, dynamic population that we have, the Indigenous population, some of us a little bit older, that we have, the returning, very experienced diaspora community that increasingly are seeing this as the best place on the planet to come back to live, to set up a business, because they see the value proposition, they see the place that we've all shaped and our ancestors and those gone before us have created. They see the fantastic education system, both schools and third level. They see the affordable housing market that exists in the Northwest. the property solutions, the value proposition, the quality of life. So it's our job to promote that. It's our job to understand that. It's our job as a region to sell that and to exploit that to make us smarter. But also, the third strand is the partnership approach. We all do things so much better when we work together. It's a cliche at this stage, but it's very true that across the Northwest region there have always been collaborative partnerships, but never so much as now when we've begun to very clearly, strategically work together. Work together with set goals and objectives, work together with milestones to deliver them, monitoring that progress, reporting on that progress, striving to get better all of the time, supporting each other and challenging each other through the structures and the partnerships that we've collectively set up. That's a smart region. That's a very smart region. And that's the region within which we all work and contribute at this minute in time. So as two councils in Derry City and Strabane and Donegal County Council, we are absolutely privileged to have been leading on this initiative over the last 5 or 6 years. Every part of the political system, every part of the corporate system in both councils have striven to drive this agenda. And that's all great and good, but it has really only come to fruition. The value of it is really only realised when the key partners in the region collaborate in a similar manner. And so I really congratulate and commend our third level partners for this initiative, because that's where the real value comes from. To our business colleagues across both chambers who have taken similar steps, to our colleagues in health, to our community colleagues, to our sporting colleagues, all of whom are now beginning to work across that wider Northwest City region basis. So it's a very exciting time, huge challenges obviously globally, right across business and other regions, but we are resilient in this place. We've got key strategic direction. We've got the partnerships backing it up. We're flushed with recent success. We have much more to do. And I'm delighted to be here this morning and to hear how we might improve that and work forward in the future to make us even smarter in the months and years ahead. Thank you very much.
It was lovely to get a sense of that dynamic, gentlemen. When John, when you talked about the Dublin government, that's sort of language that I associate with how sometimes Donegal feels about its distance from the centre. And that's a justified feeling. When you talked about the tradition of emigration, you're quite true that it was from Lough Swilly that O'Neill and O'Donnell left. And for centuries, that was the pattern of people leaving. It was wonderful to hear of your commitment as the head of the local government, of the authority here in Donegal, to bringing those people back and to giving them a better quality of life. When I lived in Derry, I found a version of the same, that Derry always felt that it was the poor relation of Belfast and the Stormont government or the Westminster government. And that was a justified feeling because all the statistics proved it. People like Sean Farren and Paul Arthur and Dennis Bradley here in the audience, they'll know all about that. And for me, it's very interesting to see just how the two places have combined their justified sense of grievance. They've turned that into positive energy, and they have this new level of cooperation. while I was based in the north, Derry was always ahead of the curve in terms of taking steps, courageous steps. You know, I think of Willie Hay, for instance, from the DUP. You know, Willie Hay was brave in what he did. He later became Speaker in the Assembly. And Unionists were in a minority in Derry. And Derry was the place, and Dennis is evidence of this, in many respects where the peace process started. And we have the fruits of that today. And there was a porous border in this area before it applied in anywhere else. And as somebody who lives in Sligo, I often think that our relationship with Fermanagh is underdeveloped. We're probably the same kind of mild people. We're maybe not as enterprising as you are up here, maybe because we weren't as desperate as you are here. But already from what has been said today, from what your local authority has said, from Orla's presence, from what the Minister said, you do get the sense that this region and this initiative you have in this cluster has been identified as the special child of the new Ireland. And for all of you who are at this event, I hope you have that sense because you're actually contributing to it. And it's a really wonderful example of new energy on the island. Now, our next speaker, David McWilliams, is on his way to us. The girls here are telling me that he's about 2 minutes away. So, as he's, putting on the powder and maybe getting the sweat from his brow, gathering his thoughts, I'm going to talk about him. And it's great that I can talk behind his back. Because he's not kind of unique, he is unique. First of all, he's an economist that speaks in accessible language. And he's so far ahead of most people in that he's an influencer. And McWilliams was an influencer, I think, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are now live on stream. Welcome back to this gathering in ATU Donegal. We are live on stream, so if you'd like to take a seat, please do. We're now coming to what I think is the business end of our gathering. This is where very important practical knowledge is going to be shared, and where I think we're going to get momentum into the discussions. So could I welcome, please, on stage, starting here on my left, this is Larissa Feeney, the CEO of Accountant Online. Beside her, originally from West Cork, Darragh McCarthy, CEO and founder of Fintru. Next to her, Derry-born John Healy, the Vice President and Managing Director of Allstate Northern Ireland. And finally, on my far left, right of picture, Pádraig Monaghan, CEO of Optum. Now, over the next 30 or so minutes, I'm going to put some questions to them. I'm going to ask them to give us some advice and some of their wisdom gained through experience. And then I'm going to give you, the audience, a chance to put your questions to them. So I'm going to start with Larissa, who has set up her business, Accountant Online. And most of us will know that in her trade, an awful lot of young people are drawn to the Big Four. In many ways, it's still a male-dominated world. And here you have a woman who's an entrepreneur and who is establishing what is a very novel idea and establishing it very, very successful, based here in Letterkenny, County Donegal. Her background is, she's from County Sligo. She studied here in County Donegal and in Derry, and she has made this her home. And my question to start us off, Larissa, is why did you start it here? What were the sort of the practical pressures that pushed you here? And what are you hoping to achieve and to keep people here against the grain in some respects?
Hi, Tommy. Hi, everybody. Why I didn't intentionally start it here, if that makes sense. I set up the business in the last recession, and I was coming from a place where I was a young mother. I had 3 small children. I needed to make an income, really, and I felt that I wanted to do it in a certain way. So I couldn't understand why I had to travel and work in an office in a city whenever I had spent time gaining this qualification and getting this knowledge and having this skill. And I thought, well, I'll just do it myself. So I did, and it grew from there. There was no big plan. I didn't have a strategy in those days. Thankfully, we have a strategy now. But in those days, I didn't have a strategy, and I just was really open to opportunity. It was a time when I could offer my services a little bit cheaper. It was a time whenever cost was important to my clients. So I just grabbed hold of that opportunity and went with it.
And what do you have now? How many people do you have? How are they working? Where are they based? And what are your plans? And what do you see as the potential of the operation you have, which is based here?
Okay, so we are based here. We have a team of 70. It is a remote team. So we have had an office in Collab for a long time. We have an office in Dublin, but the team all work remotely, and they worked remotely prior to COVID, more so now. And I've always felt it was very important to me to be able to provide good quality employment in a rural area. I could never understand why we couldn't have that in Donegal. Why did it always have to be lower skilled type, operational type roles? If a person was suitably qualified and experienced, why couldn't they have a standard of living equal to or better than those that live in cities? And I still feel very strongly about that. About 30% of the team are based in the Northwest. Most are based in rural areas. I can only think of one or two that live in the city. They all work to suit themselves in terms of their home life, their commitments, whatever they may be. We work very much based on outputs, so we work with professionals. I don't need to monitor them every minute of every day. In terms of what the future plans are, we've grown an average of 50% a year since 2017, and please God, that will continue. We're investing in growth continually, doing that. We're continually investing in new markets, and we're continually hiring. We always have to invest in training, in professional development, and we hope to reach about 150 people over the next couple of years.
Thank you. Dara, I'm exhausted just doing the research on you. West Cork, married to a Belgian. You speak Dutch and German. You worked in Morgan Stanley in securities during the meltdown time. And you're here full of energy. So give us a summary of your story and give us what immediately you transmit. Give us a sense of what you see as the energy and the potential of this space.
Fantastic. Well, first and foremost, I'm seated on the Freudian couch, which no one else wanted to share with me. The only benefit I have a West Cork mummy, but she's not a national school teacher, so I was delighted that didn't come up earlier in the comments. But look, I figured that since you couldn't figure this out, I should come and fix it for you. Look, I as you mentioned, I grew up in West Cork. My father was a cattle dealer, and David spoke about 11 and 12 and 13 and what people had ideas, and I was going to become a cattle dealer until I discovered that my algo for buying cattle didn't really work, and I lost a certain amount of money from my father in the mart one day, and I figured I'm not going to make a career doing this. And I grew up watching Wall Street, and I said I want to become a millionaire. I want to become a big, trader in Wall Street, unashamed greed. Anyway, I got a job at Morgan Stanley. It was fantastic until it wasn't fantastic, and maybe it's the middle-aged, kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and whatever you're trying to achieve in life. And my life felt, whilst maybe financially rewarding, not fulfilling. And Ireland at the time was, you may recall, one of the pig countries. And I thought, you know what, I should do something about this. And I said I should somehow come up with a business idea to create jobs in the PRC, which is the People's Republic of Cork. But then I decided, being as broad-minded as I would look across the island of Ireland, and somehow the people in Northern Ireland fell for my charm. Don't ask me why. And they said, please come here. And in 2013 or 2014, Fintru set up in Belfast. Said we create 80 jobs in 5 years. We ended up creating 80 jobs in just under 3 years. Then we said we'll create 160 jobs in 5 years. We created 160 jobs in 12 months. Then in June 2018, we said we'd create 605 jobs. But particularly, what was then keen for me was we wanted to expand out of Belfast. And being a good Cork boy, I get the second city kind of hang up. And went to Derry and really had a fantastic experience. And being in Derry, we also ended up hiring a lot of wonderful people from this region and got to know lots of people on this side of the border. And what was aforementioned, I'm well aware of the cooperation between the councils and the universities and the regional colleges. And so we actually announced we would create 300 jobs in July in Letterkenny. We actually have our first cohort of graduates joining us on Monday. I'm meeting them just after lunch. I'll preempt your question of where we're going. We are the only company. I said country. That's quite funny. We're not yet a country. That's what you call a Freudian slip.
On the couch.
But we're the only company I've ever heard of. We have our very own star. We have called the Fintru Star because people often ask us where we're going. You can actually buy these things. It's not worth very much, so it's not an investment. It's probably worse than crypto. But we have a star which is located in the constellation of Sagittarius, which is our birth sign. And that's where we're going. And we want to be as big as humanly possible, creating the best quality jobs in a profitable way, but also having a social purpose.
What age are you?
My big birthday is next year. I'll be 50. And again, it's, I guess, my midlife crisis. So David mentioned, his son was off to Erasmus. My daughter is currently in Vienna for the year, just started 2 weeks ago. And I agreed with her. She's taking February off from uni, and I think I might be skiing in Austria in February in my midlife crisis. So.
And how long are you going to keep going for?
Forever.
That's the
I'm
answer.
I'm not good at anything else.
That's the answer I expected. John, born in Derry, you are one of the entrepreneurs from the post-Good Friday Agreement. Allstate, such a big presence. Tell us that story. Tell us your story and tell us the Allstate story.
Well, I'll start with my own. Yeah, I'm from Derry, and went to Queen's to university, got my degree, and then went to try and get a job. And there weren't any. I had done computer science, and you either got a job with British Telecom, as was, or you didn't get a job, and I didn't. So I was one of the ones who was maybe forced to go away. Went off to London, joined an investment bank, and worked my way through the technology organisation of investment banks. I came back and I ran a large development centre for Citigroup in Belfast, and was part of growing that enterprise to the size that it is today. And then just over 7 years ago, moved across from that to Allstate. And Allstate's had a very long history in Northern Ireland. It was the first US foreign direct investment into Northern Ireland after the peace process. So we're coming up to our 25th year as well. And pretty modest ambitions. It's a similar story to yours, Dara, around, back then it was coming up to the millennium bug, and they're looking for extra capacity to do some work, and maybe if they thought they could get maybe 100, 150 programmers in Northern Ireland, that's what success would look like. And in the end, there are now 2,400 of us in Northern Ireland, and that breaks down about 1,500 in Belfast and 900 here in the northwest. So a hugely successful company over those 23, 24 years, and coming into our 25th year. We've been operating out of the northwest for over 20 of those years, and really the idea of coming to the northwest 20 odd years ago was really around getting access to a different source of talent. And I was really struck listening to David McWilliams speaking earlier, because it really is all about the people. That's what Allstate came to Northern Ireland for. That's why Allstate Northern Ireland set up in the northwest, about getting access to talented people. And for me and my leadership and the time that I've been at Allstate, it really has been around growing and developing, nurturing the talent, building those relationships across the universities, across business, across government, around helping to develop more talented people, so that 30 years on, that where I am in my career, where as somebody coming out looking to stay here and have a job, to play my part in now where coming out of university we are literally fighting over the talent coming from the universities. There's such a scarcity to fuel all of our businesses that we're having to work really hard to attract all of that talent into our businesses. It's a great time for somebody coming out of an institution like this one, or the Northwest Regional College, or out of Magee. It's just a fantastic time to be coming out into the market and starting your career, because you can have a career in any one of these fabulous businesses, who are just four among a constellation of other businesses.
Fascinating. Pádraig, what's special about you is there you are, grew up in West Donegal, still managing to live there and be CEO of a branch of a really major multinational. Is it hard? Are there specific challenges in this region? Or do you look to see what are the assets and the special gifts of this region? Because obviously there's what we call in Irish, there's an element of cheer grow in you. There's a love of place in you, and you want to improve the place. So tell us about that experience.
Yeah. So let me kind of start on a bit of a journey first on what is Optum or United Health Group. So we're as Tommy outlined, we're a pretty big enterprise. We're part of a company called United Health Group, 350,000 employees worldwide, $300 billion plus in revenue. And to kind of put that into context, right? If Dara made the Freudian slip, if they're not a country yet, if United Health Group was a country, it'd be about the 40th biggest country in the world. So we're bigger than Finland, and we're about the same size as South Africa. So that kind of gives you an idea of the scale that the company operates. 135,000 clinicians, in the mid-30s number of technologists. So we're that kind of marrying of technology and healthcare together. So our history started in 1999, a bit like the Allstate history, 30 employees. Then in 2006 we were purchased. That was originally, by a company called Pacificare, 2006 set up. And then bought by a company called United Health Group. Then we migrated to set up an operation in Dublin, and then in 2020, we had the UK and Ireland brought together as an ecosystem. Numbers: we have 1,100 in Letterkenny, we have about 900 in Dublin, and then we're in the middle of an acquisition in the UK that'll make us substantially larger in terms of scope and scale. Now, the number of 2,000 is not the important number. The leadership team, and that's where I'll get round, Tommy, to talking about what's kind of unique or what's secret about the operation. The leadership team, or the operation that is Ireland, manages another 6,000 people around the globe. So 8,000 people within that kind of ecosystem of how we operate when you look at vendors and other parts of the enterprise. Now, what makes the Letterkenny operation unique is we started off with 30 employees back in 1999. We still have half of them, right? We have extremely low labor turnover rates. Over the last number of years, we've averaged about 4 or 5%. So what we get is we attract people into the business, and that allows us the ability to invest in them and create people with deep domain expertise. Because frankly, you can't go out and hire somebody that is an expert in the US healthcare market in Letterkenny, right? They just don't exist. So you have to hire people, train them, invest in them, and grow them over time. 20% of our people are more than 15 years. 30% are more than 10 years. 68% are more than 5 years. So we have a huge intellectual knowledge of deep domain expertise. Some people are, the best at what they do. Let me talk about some examples of what they do in the Letterkenny ecosystem. Now, this just relates to Letterkenny. It's not our Dublin operations, right? So we have the chief financial officer for a part of the enterprise called Optum Global Advantage. That's where I sit, right? 45,000 people. Chief financial officer for that part of the operation is run by a lady who graduated from this college, a lady called Irina Jinks. She lives in Kilmacrennan, right? Matthew Erskine, first employee, chief technology officer for the Optum UK and Ireland. 600 people involved in technology across the UK and Ireland. Matthew's first employee, lives just outside Donegal town. Then we have a part of our business that's extremely complicated called appeals and grievances, right? It's without kind of getting down into the subtleties, it's an extremely complicated operations business for Medicare, which is the insurance business for the retired community in the US. It's run by a guy from Buncrana, Matthew McNamee, and a guy from Derry, Jason Clacken. 1,800 people around the globe in that part of the business, singularly the most influential operations business within one of our biggest divisions in United Health Group. And then you have Optum RX, which is a pharmacy business, standalone pharmacy business. And anything within a $300 billion organization is large, right? This is enormous pharmacy business. The chief security officer is Paul Brady, graduate of ATU, lives in Tunnafubble in Sligo, just outside Sligo town. So the point being is the intellectual capability and technology to the region that a region like this can deliver is just absolutely enormous, and is evident within within the jobs that people have that run enormous parts of this business out of this location. And just leave you with one stat, right? David referred to innovation, right, and the importance of innovation. So you take this massive company that's 350,000 people, right, and you have 2,000 people in Ireland. 25% of the patents, right? So patents within healthcare are pretty hard to get. 25% of the patents for a 350,000 person organization were delivered by 2,000 people, and a number of them are in Letterkenny. So pretty remarkable statistic, and pretty remarkable what people within this geography or this area have been able to do within a company that's bigger than many countries. So.
Wonderful. I know you all have a view on the north-south. It might be a porous border. It is a porous border. But there's an issue over tax and cross-border workers. So will one of you highlight the problem you're having and make the case for change? Who wants to do it?
Oh, I'll pick that one up for. Never knowingly missed an opportunity.
Well, this is a company, just to explain, this is a company that has the vast majority of its workers living in Northern Ireland, but is wide open to having people from south of the border work in the company but struggling, right?
Yeah, we've got a sizable chunk of the Northwest workforce who come across on a daily basis to bring their labour to power our business and solve the problems for the corporation. But in this digitally connected mobile world in which we're living, and just think what we've all come through with COVID, and how we've all learned to love the idea of the flexibility that comes from working from home. Unfortunately, that is not available to our cross-border workers, because if those cross-border workers even do the slightest task for us from the state, they are not able to tick the box on their tax form to claim the eligibility for the cross-border tax relief. In essence, they then become liable for their worldwide income to the Irish tax system, as opposed to just the PAYE that they've already paid through our payroll. And that is going to be a real barrier for the Northwest, an economy that is so integrated in the way that Derry and Donegal, the economy here in the Northwest, is fully integrated. It's going to be a real problem in terms of attracting and retaining those highly mobile jobs with the digital workers of the future, because that's what we've now come to expect. Our workforce has come to expect. Now, during the pandemic, the revenue commissioners were really flexible and they set those regulations aside, and we were able to demonstrate how effectively we can continue to grow and develop and bring that wealth into the region and into Donegal in particular. But that has now all been rescinded as those COVID easements have been removed, and we're right back now to the previous situation where, unfortunately, our employees now have to get in their cars and have to drive across the border and come into a physical office in Derry, which is just so anachronistic in terms of the way that the economy and the way we want to grow the economy and the way that we're talking about growing the economy with a digital corridor between Derry and Letterkenny. That just will not work with the strictures of the tax system.
John, if I'm hearing you right, and I don't want to dwell on this too long, if I'm hearing you right, that should be part B of any Brexit discussion, that's such a practicality for people in this region.
It sounds like a Brexit issue, but it's not really a Brexit issue. It's a tax issue.
There's no point in sorting out elements of Brexit if you've got this practical problem with cross-border workers, right?
Yeah, Tommy, it's not just... I think we see it here on kind of steroids, to use that kind of frame, because of the proximity of the border and cross-border workers' rights. It's actually a global problem. And just to kind of put some stats on it, 33% of jobs across Europe were advertised globally to try and attract talent, and 25% of the software engineers alone came from jurisdictions outside of the European Union. So what I'm trying to paint is you have a highly mobile workforce now, that the tax law was written for a pre-pandemic world, and now where people are requiring flexibility. So 71% of employers now offer hybrid working environment. So people don't people don't look at borders when they decide, hey, listen, I want to live in one place and I want to commute to another place. So we're just seeing it as a microcosm here, but it's actually part of a much bigger problem. But actually, I think there could be some practical solutions between both governments that would actually ease the pain for this jurisdiction. Right. And I think that's a point. That's a point.
Yeah. Some countries, you look at Spain. Spain are really pushing on this idea of how to resolve the tax issues for these digital nomads, because there's real value to the place, real value to the economy in terms of keeping that kind of person within the locale.
Point made. But this is about the potential of this education structure, this cluster, this unique experiment that has a lot of goodwill and energy and expertise behind it. Now, you are successful people from business, and you have here some key players in education, in local authorities, and at higher political level as well, in the funding agencies. And I want you, each of you, to take 60 seconds, 90 seconds to tell me what you would like this group to do for you to help you grow your businesses and to help keep people in this place and to make their enterprise a success. Marissa, can I start with you and we'll work our way over?
Yeah, for me, what I see, I'm recruiting mainly technical individuals, and technical graduates have all the skills. Is that working okay? Yeah. Technical graduates have all the skills to technically do the job. But what we need is a change in mindset in our graduates. So we need a change in mindset, we need education on entrepreneurship, we need more emphasis on soft skills, because all of my people are working remotely. I have no doubt that they can all do the technical job. The challenge for me is how do I develop them in a remote way to be the best that they can be. And in order to do that, I need them to have fantastic communication skills, for example, fantastic people development skills, people management skills. In all of their education, if they go through accountancy exams, for example, company secretarial exams, tax, VAT, payroll, whatever, they never learn how to manage people. They never learn how to communicate. That was traditionally left to the workplace. And of course, now the modern workplace is no longer there in a lot of ways, a lot of cases. So I would like to see some emphasis on those types of skills to help develop more rounded graduates before they come into the workplace.
Very, very practical advice. Dara, you're heading for the stars. You're here for the long run. What would you like to see here?
So look, first and foremost, look, we've had Fintra has run more assured skills academies than probably any other company in Northern Ireland, with combination of UU and Northwest Regional and some of the other regional colleges. First and foremost, I want to see them replicated with Donegal, ATU and ETB, and our first one launches tomorrow, so I have no reason we can't replicate that, so we need to scale that up. Secondarily, I think very much like Larissa said, we both need the technical skills but also the non-technical skills, and I think exactly picking up on what David mentioned about those different types of thinkers and thought process, and I think we need to just have a partnership between the institutions of higher education and businesses to help us train people both before they join, but also as an ongoing, continuous professional development, because the world is evolving. We are in the post-COVID hybrid working model. One thing I'll tell you that I love, I don't know if you've heard about the rise of the introvert. The introverts have excelled in the post-COVID hybrid working model. I never thought introverts would excel in a company that I lead, and I'm delighted, right? So I think we need to just understand that there are different types of people, and I think if we can, organizations can take them, and the institutes of higher education can work with us to really train both pre and during, and then ultimately, hopefully, we'll create an ecosystem which will fund lots of other fantastic businesses that will spin off, and we'll have an ecosystem that will be in this region of higher value-added paying jobs, and that'll be a huge success.
John, your views?
Well, for a large company like Allstate, there is definitely a dimension that's around the volume of quality graduates are coming through the institutions. So really it is around how do you continue to attract the brightest and the best to come through your institutions, and to then come graduate and come through and into the wider economy and come and take the literally hundreds of jobs that if I could find the people I could fill today. I do agree with Dara that I think that there is a large space there around continuing professional development. I was interested listening to Mark talking about the innovation that you get within your business. I see that within mine, and we're driving that from the office in Derry. And we've put some of our talented employees through postgraduate courses here at ATU, to starting to graduate off a master's in entrepreneurship and getting real value in that. So what other offerings are there out there? What are skills are within the different faculties that actually would really help us as we look to refresh the skills to keep propelling our businesses for the future?
First of all, before I get into it, let me kind of just compliment the groups that are like ATU and ETB and organizations like that, because you have been implicit in our ability to set up in this region and grow as we've grown over the number of years. We've had hundreds of people that have experienced your courses and upskilled, and we've also had thousands of people that have tapped in remotely throughout our organization and developed themselves through those courses and classes as well from the States. So for me, right, as a company, right, I'm that marriage of healthcare, technology, and financial services. So for me, we have a unique opportunity within this location. We have the medical school in Derry. We have the medical school here that's attached to ATU in conjunction with Letterkenny General Hospital. We have all of the different curricula now that are developed within Ulster University and in the whole healthcare space. I think there continues to be an enormous opportunity for data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, technology, UX design, software engineers to exploit their skills in that area. Put it like this, healthcare is a $5 trillion business. 20% of GDP in the United States is spent on healthcare. It's a growing business. It's going to continue to grow. Aging populations are going to ensure economies spend more on healthcare. So my kind of thoughts or pearls of wisdom, or call it whatever you want, for the bodies that are here is exploit our unique abilities when it comes to the intellectual talent we have and intellectual capability, and focus in those areas. And we have 4 financial services organizations sitting here, and then you marry that with healthcare and technology, and I think you have a recipe made for extreme success. So.
When I was knocking around Stormont, and I spent a lot of time there, in the canteen, the different factions had their own tables, and as the years progressed, occasionally you'd see them maybe in the same queue together and talking to each other and socialising with each other. What strikes me about here is you have the 2 chief executives from the local authority sitting together over there, comfortable in one another's skin. You have the same with the educational institutions here from Letterkenny and from Derry. And you can see it's not a competitive thing. There's no sort of animosity there. They seem to be dovetailing nicely. So that might just be part of the question I'm asking you. It seems to me that that's working well. But if I said to you, come back here in 5 years' time, how will we judge what these people are doing? Give me the yardstick. Give me the targets that you would like to see met. Give them their homework from a meeting like this. Larissa.
For Accountant Online, as I said, we have targets in terms of employment over the coming years. My preference is to employ in Donegal. That's where I would like to employ. I don't have to employ in Donegal because they are a remote team, but I would prefer to employ here. So that would be my measurement. If I can employ more here, if the talent is here or from here, then that to me would be success.
Dara, be a tough taskmaster.
Look, I think I'd like to see 3 things. I think I'd like to see people here earning a higher wage. So I think that's something. I think I'd like to see more spin-offs for my sector, and I'd like to see an increase in number of Donegal people moving back here from expensive places with skills, because they can actually have the opportunity to pursue their professional careers here.
So Tommy, that kind of ecosystem you described was, I think the term coined for it is co-opetition. Businesses all working together, and I do think that we do that especially well on the island of Ireland, and I think we do it exceptionally well here in the Northwest. And I think that as I look at, say my business, and I suspect yours as well, from a big foreign direct investment, we've done really well in terms of growing the size that we have been, and we've been around for quite a while. What I'd love to see now is us cooperating more to get more of the entrepreneurship going, more businesses like Larissa's and like Dara's, out there to actually create real wealth in the economy. And that's what success would look like for me, is if the universities, the colleges, could help us to take all these talented people that we have spent a lot of time employing, training, and given some amazing skills, and then helping them to spin out to set up some of those entrepreneurial businesses that are really going to propel this region in the future.
You work to targets, Pádraig, so you give them targets, please.
Yeah, so if you think of if you think of what a business is, right, it's people and connectivity, right? And the comment was made twice during the the intros with David McWilliams and Tommy at the start. Is I don't know whether it's a 5-year target, but guys, we absolutely need to fix the road infrastructure into the Northwest. It's as basic as, because you know what, I'm very fortunate, and I host some of the most senior executives, CEOs and CEOs of divisions, and I host them in Letterkenny. And I get embarrassed in the thought of having to explain why we have nearly a 4-hour journey to get to Letterkenny. So we absolutely need to fix that. And that's, I don't know whether it's Donegal or whether it's the politicians that we need to get aligned around and fix that, right? That's kind of point number one, because that solves the connectivity thing. Point number two is, so I in my business, right, and I don't have the problem in that trying to attract people into the region, because I can provide any type of employment to any individual at any level, be it an entry level to a Cambridge graduate, data scientist, PhD, and I have every job in between. What we need the colleges and the universities is continue the hyper investment to create those advanced level disruptive capabilities in machine learning, artificial intelligence, automation, all those advanced skill sets, because that's where healthcare is going, that's where financial services is going. And if you want to put that on the kind of the target for the region to create those high level advanced capability skill sets and have graduates coming out of there, I think that would be a pretty good target for people to embrace. So.
Oh, very, very, very. I hope somebody is taking a note of that, because we're going to have a 2.5-year review, and then we're going to hold you to account in 5 years. I'd love to get some questions from the audience. So I've one here on my right-hand side, sir. I'll get a microphone to you immediately, and you might identify who you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Is it working? Yeah, thank you, Tommy. I wear several different hats here, and I'll just introduce myself. Paddy Malone is my name. I'm chair of DKIT, Dundalk Institute of Technology. I'm PRO of Dundalk Chamber, and Tommy and you and I would have done quite a lot over the years on that. And I'm also, just like Larissa, I'm an accountant. I'm a chartered accountant like her. So I'm coming with several different hats. What I would say is the Chamber in Dundalk have been making the submission on this very point about cross-border for the last 5 years. It wasn't just COVID, it's been before that. I met the Austrian ambassador three months ago, and I just raised it with him out of curiosity, because if Austria is one country that definitely has that problem, and he looked at me and he says, you have 1, we have 9, and I'm going to leave it to the OECD to sort it out, just like they sorted out the corporation tax. And I said, that took 20 years. And he said, I expect it to be done sometime around 2030, or 2050, sorry. So that's the pessimistic view of politicians and of diplomats.
And the question...
They see the problem, they know what it is, and it's simple, but they are not even prepared to tackle solutions to address the issue.
Right. Well, have you a question for the panel?
Question I have is, how can that be moved on? I mean, it's just so negative. You
Okay.
know, I mean, we have made this. We have made appeal after appeal on this. We need a momentum to gather up to make the point over and over again, right across the border.
Yeah, you see, part of the pessimism or your view on the problem is that you kind of need to bring this back into what's in it for governments, right? What's in it for them to solve the problem? And actually, the problem is that, and we see this, and David McWilliams put it way more eloquently than me, is the level of borrowings that every economy has now are at such extreme levels, is that they're after tax revenue, and this is a tax revenue raising measure. So let's be frank on it. That's what each government see it as, a tax revenue raising within their jurisdiction. And that's the problem statement, is they're battling with extreme tax loans or that tax level, or sorry, extreme borrowing levels, and they need tax revenue raising measures. So that's the dilemma. But it's, without kind of name dropping, I presented a similar type thing at an OECD forum earlier on in the week, and I raised the exact point. And there seems to be a bit of momentum at that level now. Whether it'll take time or not, I don't know.
But there is definitely, like, there's a two-way travel of this labour. There's plenty of people living in Northern Ireland who are travelling down every day to work in your company, so it works both ways. And I don't think as a place that we want to get to a situation where I fire all my Southern resident, you fire all your Northern, and then we re-employ them and end up with these homogenous units. Which is, I think, would be a disaster, because we miss out again. Back to David's talk around the diversity of thought, the different kind of perspective that you bring to the workplace. So there's definitely a piece about place, and our politicians, we just need to keep telling them the story that this just isn't working for here as a region, and they will have to do something about it to resolve it for their voters.
Point made. I'm going to look for some more questions. Have I some more questions? Thank you, sir, at the back. I think that's Chris O'Malley I see back there. I see Andy Bonner standing there. I knew him playing football in UCG, and he still looks a good player.
Thanks very much. Yes, Chris O'Malley from ATU. Very interesting about the confluence of financial services, health and technology, and I'm just wondering, within that, can you see a couple of niches which this region could become known globally for within that?
You know what? I think the whole digitalization of healthcare is a remarkable, phenomenon. If you look at the development of telemedicine, right, within healthcare, we as a company will see 22 million telemedicine visits, within United Health Group. That's 17x times what it was pre-pandemic. And a remarkable statistic, and when I read it, it blew me away, is by 2030, right, and this is just a stat that refers to the UK, right? It just doesn't refer to the UK, it refers to everywhere, right? But 1 in 4 of UK citizens by 2030 won't have access to a GP. 1 in 4 by 2030 won't have access to a GP. Therefore, telemedicine and the digitalization of healthcare is going to play an important part, and it's developing the notion of clinician deserts, right, where there will be no clinician in a certain region, and they won't be rural; they'll actually be in urban areas as well. So I think that whole aspect of bringing the uniqueness of technology plus the healthcare assets that we have assembled, I think is a pretty unique opportunity, and a pretty unique opportunity for a location like this to scale.
Sorry, if I could just maybe give one, Chris. I think there's and it's a bit self-serving, so I'll be candid, but I think that's the direction I'm going, and I think there's we're in a border region. Let's actually look at the benefits of a border region. We actually have people who have an SME level of both sides of the border, so they understand the EU and they understand the UK. And so if I look at the space I'm in is RegTech, so it's having technology to help people meet regulations. We're starting in financial services, but I think that would apply for healthcare. I think that'll apply for ESG, that'll apply for social media, so I think there's a real opportunity. So let's actually take the disadvantage and flip it to an advantage. Actually, we have people who are versant in both sides of the regulations of the borders, and I think that actually can be, if we can then differentiate, I think that can be a real selling point.
I'll take one final question, sir. It's yours at the back.
Thanks, Tommy. Aidan McKenna with Enterprise Ireland. The OECD reported that we're kind of behind our counterparts when it comes to clusters. It's something that we in Enterprise Ireland, in conjunction with the ATU and indeed Invest NI, are trying to, grow that indigenous cluster, those companies talking together. What do we need to do to encourage companies like yourselves to work more closely with our indigenous or innovative small companies and our clusters, on your roadmap for working in the region together as well?
Way back when I was running Citigroup, we did have a financial services cluster that tried to achieve that, and we had some success, particularly around skills and giving a bit of direction to the universities around the type of skills. Just not enough focus, I don't think, in terms of getting into the smaller businesses. And whenever you look at some of the initiatives in the UK, like the FinTech Ambassador, that's a role it comes out of the HMRC, out of the Exchequer. And that has been really successful in terms of bringing together those smaller companies with the larger companies like an Allstate, just even to make them aware that they're there. So I think help and support from agencies like Invest NI, like Enterprise Ireland, like the IDA, in terms of facilitating the exposure of those smaller companies, I think would be something that would be very useful to the larger company.
Larissa and Dara and John and Porrick, I really enjoyed your company. Thanks for being so generous with your time. I hope you got something from it, and I hope you got a sense from the room of the respect that there is here for what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are tight on time because there's a very nice lunch being prepared for you as we speak, and I want to make sure you get to it and that you don't have to gulp it down. So our next stage involves a presentation by the cluster leaders. And in order to cut a few corners, I'm going to ask them to come on stage and to present themselves, and then we'll have a brief Q&A with them afterwards. So they will introduce themselves, they will give their message to you, and then we'll have a Q&A. I was struck listening to the conversation over the last 45 minutes about the level of cooperation. The one area where I'm not too sure about it is in sport. I still think Derry City have their own identity and Finn Harps have their own identity. I think when it comes to GAA every year, Donegal will look to knock lumps out of Derry. And when my good friend from Dundalk was here, I was very conscious of his family's links with Dundalk Football Club, Mr. Malone. And I myself am a very proud Sligo Rovers supporter. And I enjoy beating Finn Harps. I enjoy beating Derry City. My heart is broken when we lose to them, much as I love this region. So, over you come here, Paul Hannigan, with your colleagues, and introduce yourselves. You're being mic'd. Dunfield. Tell us about Dunfield. Right.
And it was an amalgamation of the two. And when we came together, the chairman of Linfield picked the day for us to go to Windsor Park for it to be launched.
Right.
And I got on the bus that morning to see that 20 years ago that day had been the riots in Dundalk.
Right.
And we went up saying, don't mention the war, don't mention the war. And the first thing the chairman of Linfield met with, the greeters with in the car park was, you were responsible 20 years ago today for us getting banned from Europe for 5 years.
Wow.
That's over.
Wow. Wow.
Dunfield went on for 10 years, bringing all the kids from East Belfast, West Belfast, and Dundalk, and training. So it can happen on occasions that you will get this crop. And Dunfield was a remarkable success because it meant that when we played Linfield 7 times later, to stand up and other things, we were friends.
One of,
that whole history is gone. That's
yeah.
gone from the door. They can go score a 4 times for Italy.
Yeah, it strikes me that in Dundalk and there on the east coast, you have great advantages that you're close to Dublin, you have a good road network, you have a great rail link, you have Newry just over the border. But on cross-border cooperation and on relationships, I think this place is different.
I'm here to learn.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Right, everybody is mic'd up. Thanks for that interlude. Mr. Hannigan, explain yourselves one by one. I'm not going to do any introductions. Off you go.
Will I start?
Yes, please.
I'm a little hoarse, or some people say I'm a donkey, but I am a little hoarse as well. So hopefully you can put up with me. My name is Paul Hannigan. I'm originally from Ballyshannon in County Donegal. I've worked in Dundalk IT for 10 years, where Paddy is chairman. So I have a fair idea in cross-border collaboration in that part of the country. I've been in Letterkenny IT since 1998 as its president, and now I'm head of college of ATU Donegal of both Letterkenny and Killybegs campuses since the 1st of April of this year. So I'm delighted to be here today. Tommy, thanks very much. Anne?
Okay, I'll go next. Hello, everybody. Another Ballyshannon person. I'm also from Ballyshannon, like Paul. Originally trained as a second-level teacher, ended up being a deputy principal, and somehow or other I got the job of CE of Donegal Education and Training Board, which offers a whole range of things. We run second-level schools, we run all the further education and training, apprenticeships, we provide youth work services, and also music, among a range of things. So delighted to be here and delighted to be joining in the conversation with my colleagues.
Hi, I'm Paul Bartholomew, Vice-Chancellor at Ulster University. Clearly, I'm not local. I came to Northern Ireland in 2016 after what I think was one of the best recruitment conversations I had with someone. I hadn't really looked at the proposition of Northern Ireland, but over the phone I had a conversation where someone talked about this journey from peace to prosperity, this time, this place, and being able to make a difference. And as colleagues will know, Ulster University is a complex multi-campus institution with a significant campus in Derry, and I'm delighted to be involved in this conversation today.
Tommy, my name is Catherine O'Mullen. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Academic Standards at Northwest Regional College. I have been involved in the further education sector for over 30 years, a sector I'm very passionate about, but particularly the impact of different pathways, professional and technical and vocational training. At this point, I have to declare myself as a blow-in as well. I live in North County Antrim, and I've only been involved with the Northwest Regional College. This is my 3rd year, and I'm very impressed with the level of collaboration that the college has with other educational establishments and with business and industry. The college would have annually 10,000 to 12,000 learners a year doing further education, higher education, and of course apprenticeships and higher level apprenticeships as well.
Right. Thanks for those presentations. I'm going to ask you 1 or 2 questions maybe, and then I'm going to ask for questions from the audience. How deep is the level of cooperation? Is there a competitive element in seeking students? Are you able to coexist? Is it a shared space? Or is there always going to be a level of competition? Because you get a sense that an awful lot of what's going on here is genuine, and in many respects it's unique. But we all know educational institutions. We know about turf wars. We know about them in Enterprise Ireland versus the IDA versus Invest Northern Ireland. We know about them in all sorts of places. So how good is it in year space? Or is there work to be done on it? And I throw that question open to the 4 of you.
I'll begin if you like, and I say I think the competition is relative. Prior to being in Northern Ireland, I was in Birmingham. I worked at 2 institutions in Birmingham, Aston University and Birmingham City University. There are 5 universities in Birmingham. So in terms of competition, we should put that into perspective. There's plenty of opportunity here for us to work together. the competitive pressures are lower than they may well be in other parts of the sectors on these islands. And as a consequence, we do collaborate. And even across the piece where competition is higher, collaboration is absolutely necessary. Certainly in areas of research, it's absolutely necessary to have authors from other and investigators across institutions, and that enriches the research. And if we think about the presentations earlier in terms of that diversity of thinking, multiple institutions collaborating into a space can only add into that. In terms of the collaboration in the taught space, that's also really, I think, well served in this area. There is more that can be done and more that will be done. But broadly, such things as articulation arrangements and ensuring that the skills escalate that people can do. People are mobile people. They go from place to place to place. We can all subscribe into the European standards around higher education from the Bologna Agreement and the credit transfer system. We understand one another's systems, and thus the ability to articulate from one program to another. Very common for people to start one program in one place, go somewhere else, do a bachelor's here and a master's there, and it all articulates together as it should. And there is a commitment, I think, from all the institutions here that our responsibility is to the wider region, and we will work together. We do work together, and I think it's best when we're working together.
Lovely.
Yeah, I'd agree with Paul. I think we need to always remember that it's the learner is at the heart of this, and I think if we keep reminding ourselves that the learner's at the heart of it, we won't go wrong. We recently did a bit of work with what was LYIT on a Maps and Gaps project, where we looked at the transitions for our further education and training students to get into LYIT to certain programs, and we were able to basically get rid of the barriers. We were able to get rid of them because they were there for no particular reason. It was just a quirk of history, let's say. So we were able to do that, and we'll be able to continue to do that to make it easier for our students to move from both our schools and our further education programs over to ATU and on to Northwest Regional and possibly UU. So yeah, I suppose we wouldn't be normal if we weren't competitive. There obviously is some element of competition, but I think it can be tweaked, and I think it can be tweezed in the right direction to make it really good for everybody. And it is about the region, and it's about keeping people in the region.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think, if you look at the development of the Atlantic Technological University and the three institutions that have come together there, like we competed like hell for years. And we probably still did. Let's be honest, with the presidents up there going no. But that's the truth of the matter. And we continued to compete while we were developing the university as well over that 10-year period. But I think really the benefit of that is that we're probably getting best practice in a lot of things now across the three institutions as we come together as one. And we recognise that some parts of the university are better than others, and we need to match up to those. And I think the collaboration on a cross-border basis has been very interesting, because we were sort of given an ultimatum at different stages, make up your mind, are you going to be a technological university or are you going to look cross-border? And it wasn't a zero-sum game, it had to be both from our perspective, because we needed to be the technological university for the region that we serve here currently, but we also needed to have the cross-border element so that we were serving the region properly. So we see ourselves in that very important link space as the Atlantic Technological University here in Donegal, to link in the Northwest cross-border region and city back with the north and west coast of Ireland, and to make sure that all of that comes together. Obviously there were tensions in terms of competition in the past. I remember when fees were being introduced in Northern Ireland, they weren't being introduced here. We had a campaign running in the Fileside shopping centre saying 3,000 saying there was three. And actually, no, the tagline was very good. It said 3,000 good reasons to come to Donegal. I remember about, but that's the sort of thing, we have to be realistic about this. We were independent institutions, we were working like that, but I think a long time back we recognised we were stronger together. And we put a lot of work in bringing the four institutions together and being ahead of the tertiary education discussion that's going on at the moment. We were ahead of that. We saw the benefits of tertiary education institutions coming together. We're now in a position to be a national exemplar around that. We have fantastic examples of students coming from Northwest Regional College to top off degree programmes here in Letterkenny. We also have similar movement of students from Letterkenny into Magee doing Master's PhD programmes. We have that sort of mobility that's been going on. We have a fantastic relationship with ETB and have had over the years, because we grew out of the VEC initially. And that relationship has been very important to us. And, you know, as the VC became the ATB and brought FOSS in and the whole apprenticeship element, that has helped us develop our capability in that space. And really, I think we're all benefiting from it at the moment.
Catherine, I don't think you're a blow-in. We'll give you a passport before you leave, okay?
Well, I suppose just I would have to endorse everything that's already been said, and it's a fair question. There is an element of competition, and competition is good. But I think one of the key things about this collaboration is that there's a mature discussion taking place, that the organisations will play to their strengths, and the more that we have the opportunity to collaborate, to co-produce and to co-deliver additional qualifications that have progression pathways both for higher level qualifications and skills and to widen access and participation, I think that conversation will take place in this cluster.
Lovely. My final question before I throw it open to the audience is we heard our 4 previous speakers talk about setting targets and where they'd like to see things, practical things that can be done over the next 5 years. So I'm going to ask you to make commitments to what you think you can achieve in practical terms over the next 5 years. I'm very conscious that there aren't many students in the audience here. I hope there are some elsewhere listening. I hope some of them are listening online. But I suppose they're the customers, they're the core audience, and if we don't deliver for them, well then all this is a failure. So I'm going to ask you to maybe to give some practical commitments to what you think might be achieved. And say, I know in Derry, the numbers that you're going to attract, they're quite a hot potato. I'd like your views on that, Paul. And I'm also very conscious of the health weakness in Donegal, and I love the way the government is trying to find a local solution to the problem with sending Donegal patients into Altnagelvin, for instance, and the talk of having a training centre for doctors in Magee. I'm very conscious, I come from Sligo, so Galway is 90 long miles away from us as a centre of excellence, but it's a hell of a long way further from the top of Inishowen. So health is such a really interesting area, and Magee is what was Magee is so key to that. So can I ask you, what commitments, specific commitments, would you like to make that are really your targets for the next 5 years? Thank you.
Should I kick off on that? And you've asked a number of questions there, I think, that have specific relevance to our campus in Derry. Certainly commitments that we will make is in terms of continued growth. We will have this year over 5,000 students. That will be broadly for the first time. There are figures that will be quoted about from previous figures, but actually they're misinterpreted. This will be the most students this year that there's ever been, and we will continue to grow. I think that there's growth under existing systems to get us up to about 6,000 students. I've been perfectly public about that. I know that sits in tension with expectations and aspirations around the 10,000 number. In my experience, and what I've gone out to say, is that the existing system does not allow for that. Now, there have been people that have just said, just say it and they will come. That's just simply not the case. And I like to think that putting that number out there in terms of what is absolutely achievable and will be achieved opens up that discourse about what's got to change to go beyond that. And there are some things in terms of governmental policy that's got to change to go beyond that. And once those changes make, we can do that. So what I'm trying to achieve at that campus is not just to be on the path for the 6,000 students, which I think that we will achieve within that 5-year window, but to ensure that we have a campus that's not incompatible with a higher number. That involves us in ensuring that we can attract funding into that campus. We've done that internally. I've changed the finance model of the university so that money no longer follows the students around. Instead, we can make strategic choices from the students going on all of our campuses, comes into the centre so that we can make strategic decisions to respond to the regional need. And indeed, our new strategy, People, Place and Partnership, has a specific commitment, and again, there's a commitment for better campus balance. So what we can do is use all of the assets and income of the university to achieve better campus balance, and there's a commitment to do so. Specifically in that health space, certainly on a cross-border basis, we're into the second year of the medical school there, and that's recruited about 50% from the south, 50% from the north. all of those people are broadly local to the area to achieve that target of having a health service that works in this area. And we have, of course, moved just under 1,000 students from our Jewelstown campus onto our McGee campus in Derry just this year. And that contributes to I think there's several commitments that overlap with numbers generally, and indeed in addressing the health. I will just say something from the last industrial panel that we had. There was a call for greater soft skills and so forth, and I think that's quite difficult to do online. That's why, as part of our strategy, we've ensured that we're committing to campus-based learning to bring students onto a campus, and being here today and seeing all the students here and the footfall that we're getting, and talking to other educationalists, getting footfall back on campuses for people to learn together and to learn those soft skills, team skills, how to communicate, really important. And I think we've got these assets as campuses in these spaces. That they're not buildings for their own sake, they're buildings to fill with people. And I'm happy to see that that's really happening this year in that, if we can call it that, a post-COVID environment.
Fascinating.
Okay, Tommy, yeah, I think you may have heard the Minister talk about the cross-border apprenticeship, and I think that's certainly something that we can definitely work towards. There are, like I said before, there are barriers with the cross-border apprenticeship. There's a few issues probably at a government level, policy level, that need to be ironed out, but I don't see any reason why we can't get a cross-border apprenticeship up and running in this region. And I know the Minister's keen on the construction and the green element and the housing element and all of that, so I would see that as something key for us. I also think that we need to continue to be as agile as we can be in responding to industry. I think we're all pretty good at responding and talking to industry and seeing what they want. And you heard a few of them here. I know Pádraig mentioned he works with us. We're doing a lot of upskilling of people who are already in employment. They can upskill with us. They can upskill with any of the partners. So I think that agility piece is really key as well, and being able to respond as quickly as we can and get rid of those barriers. They're there, and when you go and look, there maybe isn't really a very good reason for them, so we're certainly keen to do that. And I suppose most crucially, to allow our young people and our students to see that they can stay in this region and they can get an excellent education from level 1, which is junior infants in our side, P1 I think in the north. Do they still call it P1 in the north? Okay. Right up to PhD level 10, and I think having a university in the region has been a game changer. It really has. I hear it from our own principals and heads of centres as well. It's really key to have that university and to have a piece of paper that says I have a university degree, and I can go back to Donegal ETB for a short, sharp intervention on whatever it might be, whether it's a soft skill or a short micro credential or whatever. It's that flexibility that you don't have to go from us to Northwest to ATU to UU, that you can hop over and back from institution to institution. That's a key message, I think, to get out.
Oh, beautifully communicated. Paul, before you open up, I'm very conscious that Letterkenny is really the advance guard in cross-border cooperation for the Atlantic University. It's quite a responsibility, so I'm going to listen very intently to your remarks.
Thanks very much. Another hospital pass from Tommy Gorman. Actually, no, I was going to pick up on that point, Tommy. So I think the most important thing from the Atlantic Technological University is to become the best university in the country for cross-border collaboration. It has to be a major part of our strategy, and it has to be something we're really good at and better than others. And I think it's really important because if you go back 10 years ago, and people will forget this because time moves on really quickly, in the programme for government that was negotiated back in 2011, cross-border collaboration had moved off that completely. It wasn't to be seen anywhere in terms of government intervention. Cross-border collaboration was gone from the Irish government's programme for government at that time. The reason for that was obvious in terms of the financial situation that we all found ourselves in. But from a perspective of a higher education institution in the region and trying to hook into government policy as to how we could try and progress, that was a major gap as far as we were concerned. If you look at what has happened since, it's come back stronger. The Shared Island Fund has now been established. We're working with the department around different initiatives in that. We're working with the councils on different initiatives that have just been funded recently. So we see real opportunity in the Shared Island Fund, but it's not a gimme. We've got to do really good work in terms of to attract the funding that's necessary. and everybody that's involved in it knows that and knows what the standard is achieved of us. And I think that this particular cluster has real opportunities to continue to develop that. We got off to a bad start in this cluster, not because of any fault with the partners, just because we ran into COVID. And because a lot of it is built upon our strong personal relationships and sharing, etc., COVID really put a dampener on it as it started off. So we're really just finding our feet now at the moment. And I see this conference today, the launch of the new identity, the coming together of everybody here this morning, as a sort of a new starting point, if you like, for the cluster and the work of the cluster. And the fact that the Technological University has been approved in the middle of that, I think gives us even greater momentum moving forward. And I agree totally with what Anne and Paul have said. And I do think that there's huge opportunities for us, but we have to be at the forefront of that. And ATU Donegal has to play its part within the overall ATU structures to make sure that that happens, and that we bring our colleagues from Sligo and Galway into the process, and that they become part and parcel of it as we move forward.
Thank you, sir. You took that hospital pass and you buried it. Well done. Okay, goal scored. Catherine, I'm going to leave the final word to you.
Tommy, I'm going to start with apprenticeship provision as well. I mean, the apprenticeship model is really the ultimate triangulation between government, industry and education. And the college has between 500 and 600 apprentices at the minute, and certainly that message from the Minister this morning about removing barriers to develop cross-border apprenticeship provision is an excellent one, and I think that's one of the big targets. I think the other one would be to be able to have a look at the development of adult apprenticeships and not have any age barrier on that. And also the higher level apprenticeships, which have been developed and delivered in Northwest in areas that are not as traditional, like accountancy, financial services, software development. The college also has a small number of excellent partnerships with ATU, and we'd like to further develop those. We have them in the early years, and we're looking at electric vehicle technology, one of the more innovative qualifications. And also you mentioned health and the massive skills deficit in health that's in the Northwest region. So our work and collaboration with McGee through our hub, Health and Social Care Hub, we're really looking forward to developing that as well.
I was watching while you were speaking. The four previous speakers have stayed. You know, they didn't say, that's me done. They're here, they're interested. They're listening to what you're saying, and I think that really reflects the kind of engagement that you've had here today, and it maybe points the way to the future. Thanks so much for your time.
Could I just say one thing, Tommy? I just want to say thanks very much to Tommy Gorman. When I contacted him to come to this conference, he said yes immediately. He knew he was going to be launching his book in the same week. Maybe that was a good thing. You can buy one on the way out the door, I think.
He's still in Derry selling places, you know. He's a salesman at heart. We're all salesmen of a sort.
But he was a tremendous, you know, he said straight away, no problem, I'll be there. And he's been fantastic to work with in preparation for this. And he's just done a superb job today. And I just want to thank him very much.
It was my honour to be here. I love what you're doing. It gives me energy and it gives me hope for the future. So it really was my honour. To close the conference, I'm going to ask Gavin Killeen, who's the chair of the cluster's Smart Industry Group, to come and make some remarks. I know Newprint Technologies for a long time. I think Alan McClure at one stage used to go to Rathmullen, maybe, was it? He loved Rathmullen. Sidney and Una Bradley had a little sweet shop there in Great James's Street, and they used to go to Rathmullen too. Our office was over Sidney and Una's shop, and they used to come back talking about this great fella, Alan McClure. He did wonderful work over the years. When there were no jobs, you were breaking barriers. You took that legacy, you built on it, and it's a credit to you. And I think it's entirely appropriate that you should provide the closing remarks today. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Tommy, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here today to close this wonderful event that we've had, and it's been a fantastic start, you know, for the cluster. You know, we've heard today, you know, and we all know Businesses need a skilled and talented workforce that will allow them to be innovative, to create new opportunities, new products, new services, to sell them outside of this region. You know, we've seen from our business leaders today, you know, clearly in abundance what those 4 businesses have done, remarkable. You know, we in this northwest region, or maybe we're now going to call it Daraland from now on, possibly, you know, we just need more businesses like this. You know, we know as a region we underperform, you know, in value add. We underperform in the number of entrepreneurial businesses that we have against other regions within the island, within the British Isles and throughout Europe. A region that will have a well-educated, skilled and talented population, you know, will allow businesses to grow and thrive and to develop, you know, as I've said. David spoke earlier on about the creativity, you know, and creativity and innovation. If we can get that into our young people as early as possible, that helps build a bedrock for those, you know, individuals like the 4 that we saw on the platform, you know, as our business leaders earlier on. You know, unfortunately for us, you know, it is a fact of life, you know, too many of our brightest and best leave to study, leave here to go and study further afield, you know, in Dublin, London, Galway, Manchester, Liverpool and Belfast. Very few of those people are destined to return again. You know, we lose them. Some have started to come back. Dara alluded to the opportunity and John as well about the talent that they bring back, but the reality is many of them leave and don't come back. And we have some of the best schools, you know, within the whole of the British Isles, within this region, who outperform, you know, many other areas. Our A-level performances in Northern Ireland are way above the rest of the United Kingdom, but yet 1/3 of our school leavers leave this area, and they go because we don't provide enough 3rd-level places for them. So we lose those people, lose that talent. That has an impact on society. We don't have the innovators, the creative thinkers. They're leaving and going away. That's something that we need, that needs to be addressed in the long term. But at the same time, while we have very high performance, at the other end, we have far too many of our young people that leave schools without any qualifications and without basic qualifications to get them a basic job to give them a good living. At the same time, we have 32% of our population that are economically inactive. Some of those are retirees, some of those are students, but that's a figure that we are way above any other region throughout the whole of Europe, and we need to address that. So we need to look at how we bring some of those people back into the world of work and into today's world where there's a huge shortage of skills. You know, all of the businesses need people, and we don't have people. It's now gone beyond a skills shortage. It's now gone to a basic people shortage. But yet, we have all these people that are economically inactive that we could get back into work. So the work that, you know, our education sector here do, critically important, as Anna said, from level 1 right the whole way up to PhD, there is a place for everybody, you know, in society. The value of a job is not to be underestimated. You know, and David talks quite often about economic man. Human beings need a purpose in life. We need to be able to get up in the morning, go to work, do a good job, be told we're doing a good job, and then go back home again. Too many people within our region don't have that basic necessity. And you know, Maslow tells us in his hierarchy of needs what man needs. We need to have a purpose in life, and too many of our people don't have a purpose in life, and they're destined to challenges from health. And we look at the mental health issues that we have here. We look at suicide levels as well. So, you know, we never underestimate the value of a job. The Smart Industry Board was formed just over a year ago, and it's made up of our 4 tertiary partners, along with business representatives from the 2 councils and business representatives and leaders as well from both sides of the border. You know, we've started in that last year to sort of talk about the future skills needs for the businesses in this region. You know, what are the skills employers need in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time? What does the future of the region look like? What sectors will we operate in? You know, where will our specialisms be? Where can we lead the world? Is it advanced manufacturing, health and life sciences, fintech, insurtech, green tech, med tech? We've heard a lot of it today, and we've seen examples of where we can take a global leadership role and where we can provide opportunities. As Dara said, we want to pay more of our population more money than we currently do. What skills does that population need for the future workforce? What courses do we need our tertiary partners delivering? And sometimes we need to delve in a bit deeper. We need to go back into the primary schools, as David alluded to this morning. We need to review. We need to influence. We, as business leaders, be able to go back and challenge and ensure that change happens. I believe that by working collaboratively together in a spirit of cooperation, we have never seen this before, and we've seen that conversation just, is very refreshing, where, this could have been a very competitive environment for the four institutions, but we've seen them wanting to work together, wanting to work collaboratively, wanting to work across that border. That bodes really well for the future, as we move forward. It was also refreshing to hear our two council leaders as well, both on point, both speaking exactly the same message, and that's followed through with our business leaders and with our tertiary partners today. Also was very refreshing, for the minister as well, supporting the collaborative approach that we've had, and it's also been discussed also. Our education leaders are clear on their cooperation and their vision for the future, and how they're going to work together, for many years to come. As I said, if we are to be truly successful, we need our young people to want to stay here, to want to study, and not to leave. But that's going to take a cultural change, because it's the way it's been done, it's the way they've been told. We need to change behaviours, and this will require change within our post-primary sector, the subjects that are being offered in schools, the careers advice that's given within schools, and quite often within the mindset of parents as well. We've lots of work to do there. Not every bright kid needs to become a doctor. Just ask Philip O'Doherty or Dara about that. There's huge opportunities elsewhere. We need help to achieve this. I'm delighted the minister was able to be here today and to take time out of his diary to join us. And we're also grateful for the funding that we've received to date from the HEA that supported the work of the North West Tertiary Education Cluster and for the Smart Industry Board. The formation of A2U has also been a significant development that's happened, and that, as we can't reinforce that wanting to continue that cross-border cooperation. We've heard from the business panel today. They've discussed the tax issue. It's a burning issue. Someone living 6 miles and working in Derry is facing this hugely significant issue. If this was happening in Surrey or happening in Blackrock or Foxrock, I'm sure there'd be a greater ambition to maybe solve that problem. But we know this is a wider global issue, and obviously COVID's impacted on us. But this is a challenge that we face in this region, that other people don't have to deal with that quite often. We really need to work together and to continue this work, and we owe this to the young people of this region. And sometimes it does take an outsider to give us a bit of a kick or a bit of a nudge, and David did that today, particularly around that creativity and innovation piece that we do need to get into our young people. Tommy, thank you, as Paul's already thanked you, for keeping proceedings going today, asking the right question, keeping everybody in time, timely interventions and searching questions. And last time I spoke to Tommy, I think it was probably about Brexit, probably. We did quite a lot of that stuff. We thought Brexit came along, and then we've COVID, and then we've got all other crises, But, we heard from our business people today. Business people are problem solvers. Our environment changes on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. Something else. As soon as you think you've got it cracked, then something else comes in to force you in another direction. And by involving business people and collaborative working together between education, business, and council, that's that collaborative, the sum of the parts are greater than the whole. I'd like to thank all the speakers today, for their contributions, and the audience as well for your input as well. An event like this doesn't happen. A lot of hard work has gone on over the last couple of months. On behalf of the Smart Industry Board and everybody here today, I'd like to particularly thank Helen McNeilis, Joanne Kilmartin, and Paul Hannigan for putting, what I believe has been a fantastic event. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you as well for giving up your time to be here today. I know you all believe in the region, you all believe what's been done here, and we look forward to continue this development. Maybe this becomes an annual event that gets rotated around the institutions, and we'll see everybody. But look, let's everybody keep working on it, and we look forward to seeing some development. Tommy mentioned, what does success look like? What does success look like in 5 or 10 years' time? If we could attract young people from other regions to want to come and to study here, our people have been going elsewhere for years and years. Does success look like Protestant working class boys from East Belfast? Protestant working class boys are the lowest performing ethnic minority in the whole of Europe. They perform lower than the travelling community. Could we have Protestant working class boys coming to study in ATU in 5-10 years' time? Would that be success? Would that be something that could happen? I don't know. But look, please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much for being here, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Gavin, for that excellent wrap. Just to let you know, lunch is served to the left-hand side outside the door. And before you go, I'm going to conclude with my Mark Killalay story. Mark Killalay was an MEP for Connacht Ulster. He's since deceased. He was a great character. And the first time he was elected, he went to Brussels. So he checked into this hotel, and he wasn't used to this system of the buffet breakfast. So he had a good stroke. He was hungry. So he gathered a fair amount of food, and he sat down at a table. And, it took up quite a bit of room on the table. And there was a little Japanese man sitting opposite him, and he watched Mark take his place and took note of the food on the table. So your man went to him, "Bon appetit." So Mark looked at him and he thought he was introducing himself, so he went, "Mark Killalay." So anyway, the day went on. Mark signed in got his badge and all the technical stuff you have to do within the European institutions. And that night he was out with his Fianna Fáil colleagues, Niall Andrews and a gang of them. And they had been on this circuit for a few years, so they knew the story. And they were there. They had steaks, well done, none of this rare stuff, lots of chips, onions, and of course red wine. And they were getting ready to kick off, and Mark, his steak came, and before the lads started, one of them said to Mark, "Bon appetit, Mark." And Mark looked at him and he says, "Jesus, how do you know that Japanese fella in my hotel?" And they said, "What do you mean?" So Mark told the story, and they started laughing at him like he laughed. And they said, "Mark, that's a way of saying enjoy your meal." And he went, "Oh, Jesus, I made such an idiot of myself." But Mark was really bright, and he could pick up, more than the hospital pass man here, he could pick up on a situation. So he was up early the next morning, hotel. He goes and he's up before the place opens, he's down, and he's in there, and he waits and he sees the crowds coming in. He gets kind of worried that your man isn't going to arrive. So eventually, happy days, the Japanese guy arrives. So he comes up to Mark, and he has his little bit of cheese, and he has some black tea, and he sits down beside Mark, and Mark goes to him, "Bon appetit." And your man looks at Mark and he goes, "Mark Killalay." So, on that happy note, Mark Killalay, enjoy your lunch.